The moment I saw it, my world tilted. I was sitting at our kitchen table late on a Tuesday night, laptop open, a cup of half-drunk coffee beside me. Daniel had gone out for groceries, humming in the background as he unlocked the front door. And I was scrolling through our joint accounts, checking bills, balancing spreadsheets, our usual monthly ritual. A notification appeared on my phone, breaking the silence. New account activity detected. I frowned. That didn't make sense. We only had our shared checking and savings accounts. Everything was supposed to be transparent. That had been one of the promises we made when we married. No secrets, no hidden debts, no surprises. Curiosity overpowered hesitation. I tapped the alert, and there it was. An individual savings account under Daniel's name. Balance: $157,423. I froze. $157,000. Hidden. I could hear the refrigerator hum, the ticking clock, the quiet scrape of his shoes on the tile as he walked past. I wanted to call out, to confront him immediately, but the words lodged in my throat. The kitchen, once a place of comfort, felt foreign, like I had entered someone else's life without permission. Daniel returned moments later, carrying bags of groceries. He hummed, oblivious to the silent earthquake that had just rocked our marriage. "Everything okay?" he asked, setting the bags down. "Yeah," I said, my voice tighter than I realized. "Just tired." He smiled, kissed my forehead, and left me alone with the screen. I barely slept that night. Every memory of our marriage played back differently, like a film I was watching with the sound off and the wrong captions. Times he insisted on handling taxes alone. The way he sometimes stayed late at work without explanation. The subtle tension whenever we discussed money. I began to suspect every decision, every delay, every argument about finances. And then the worst thoughts crept in. Was he planning to leave me? Was this money a secret exit plan? By morning, anxiety had become a physical weight pressing against my chest. I could barely focus at work. My mind kept returning to the account, the hidden money, and the possibilities that might explain it, none of them comforting. That evening, curiosity overcame fear. While Daniel was in the shower, I logged into the account again. The transaction history stretched back almost 4 years. Regular deposits. Methodical, consistent. And then I noticed something that made my stomach knot. Transfers labeled consult. To a law firm. A lawyer. I felt as though the floor had dropped beneath me. Why would he need a lawyer? I spent the next few days observing him. Every smile, every glance at his phone, every small gesture seemed loaded with secrets. My love for him became entangled with suspicion, and it made me feel sick. I hated that I didn't trust him, but I couldn't stop the spiraling thoughts. Finally, one night, I forced the confrontation. "Daniel, we need to talk," I said, my voice tight but steady. He froze. "About what?" "The savings account," I said. "And the lawyer payments." He sank into a chair, running his hands through his hair. "You weren't supposed to find out like that," he admitted. "Why?" I demanded. "Why hide it?" He hesitated. "I've been preparing." "For what?" "For possibilities," he said softly, avoiding my gaze. The next few weeks were suffocating. He shared small pieces of the truth. A vague reference to health concerns, long-term planning, the need for security. But every explanation felt incomplete, leaving me with more questions than answers. I tried to focus on work, on friends, on normal life, but everything reminded me of the secret I had uncovered. Then the first real explanation came. One rainy Thursday evening, Daniel sat me down. His hands shook slightly as he held mine. "I didn't tell you sooner because I didn't want to scare you," he said. "Tell me what?" My voice cracked, though I tried to remain calm. He swallowed hard. "I have a condition. Something that could affect me in the future. I'm managing it now, but it's unpredictable. That's why I started the account, to protect you, to prepare for anything." Relief and anger collided. I understood the intention, but the secrecy felt like betrayal. Trust, the foundation of our marriage, had been fractured. Over the following weeks, we went to counseling, discussed finances, and attempted to rebuild communication. Yet the account remained a constant shadow between us. Every month, transfers continued, adding to the tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more he hadn't told me. Then came the second shock. While Daniel was out one afternoon, I noticed an email notification on his laptop. Subject: Property closing confirmation, escrow account. He was buying a house. Without telling me, I felt the familiar tightness in my chest. Questions flooded in. Where? Why? How could he make such a decision alone? When he came home, I confronted him. He looked exhausted, almost defeated. It's meant to be a backup, he said. A safe place in case my condition worsens. I wanted to shield you from worry. I felt a tangle of gratitude and anger. His secrecy had protected me, but it had also built a wall between us. A week later, we visited the house together. Wide doorways, no stairs, accessibility features, quiet yard. Every detail spoke of foresight, care, and fear. I realized then that the account wasn't just money, it was anxiety manifest. It was his silent way of ensuring my safety. This was only the beginning. The account, the house, the lawyer, the careful planning. It was all part of a web he had been quietly weaving for years. I began to understand that sometimes, secrets aren't born from betrayal but from fear and love intertwined. The moment we walked into the new house, I felt a strange mixture of awe and unease. Every room was immaculate, carefully planned, almost clinical in its perfection. Wide hallways, no thresholds, subtle handrails along the walls. It was designed for someone who might need mobility assistance in the future, but the care in the details made my chest tighten in an unfamiliar way. Daniel watched me closely, sensing my mixture of curiosity and apprehension. I wanted it to be ready just in case, he said softly. I didn't want you to worry before it was time. I nodded, though my heart ached with a mix of love, fear, and anger. He had planned a future I hadn't been allowed to see until now, a future that could exist without me knowing. Over the next few weeks, we tried to rebuild our trust. We talked about his health, our finances, our plans for retirement, the everyday and the extraordinary. But every conversation about money, about the account, about the house felt charged. Every silence carried weight. I felt like I was navigating a tightrope over a pit of doubt and suspicion. One evening, I was cleaning the living room when I noticed a folder tucked beneath the sofa cushions. It was labeled with Daniel's handwriting. For you, read when ready. My pulse quickened. Inside were printed statements of the secret account, bank letters, correspondence with the law firm, and a notebook filled with his handwriting. His meticulous notes described deposits, projected expenditures, and contingency plans. Each page revealed a level of foresight that bordered on obsessive. At the bottom of the folder was a single letter, addressed to me. If you're reading this, it means I finally had the courage to tell you everything. I know hiding this hurt you. Please know it was never out of malice. I only wanted to protect you. I love you. Always. I sank into the armchair, tears streaming down my face. Relief, anger, and confusion warred within me. I wanted to scream, to cry, to laugh. Daniel walked in quietly, not noticing my reaction. Did you find it? He asked, his voice hesitant. I nodded, unable to speak. He sank beside me. I thought I was doing the right thing, he said softly. But I see now that secrecy can hurt more than it helps. The following days were a delicate dance. I oscillated between gratitude for his careful planning and resentment for the secrecy. I felt like a stranger in my own home, navigating an invisible minefield of decisions made without me. Every gesture, every conversation, carried unspoken tension. Then came the moment that shattered what fragile equilibrium we had begun to rebuild. I discovered an email on his laptop, accidentally opened while he was in the shower. The subject line read, "Wire transfer, escrow account complete." My stomach sank. I opened the email and read. He had transferred funds for the purchase of another property, a separate investment, entirely secret, entirely unknown to me. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Not only had he hidden money, but he had hidden plans, tangible, irreversible plans. I felt betrayed, powerless, and enraged. When he returned, I confronted him. Why didn't you tell me about this? Another house? Another account? My voice was shaking, but I forced it to remain steady. He looked at me, exhausted, guilty. It's complicated. I wanted to ensure you'd be safe no matter what. It's not just a house. It's a contingency. A safety net. I didn't want you to worry before it was necessary. I couldn't breathe. So you made decisions for both of us without me? Without any discussion? He nodded, ashamed. I thought I was protecting you. I see now that I've only created a distance between us. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to leave. But I didn't. I stayed, trembling, absorbing the full weight of his choices. The next week was unbearable. Every glance, every word, every silence seemed loaded with tension. I was hyper-aware of his movements, his expressions, his intentions. The house, the account, the lawyer, all became symbols of secrets, power, and fear. I realized that even love could be suffocating if it was wrapped in secrecy. I began to notice subtle patterns in his behavior I had previously overlooked. Late-night phone calls, hidden notes, cryptic references to legal matters. My mind raced. Who else knew? Were there more surprises? Was there an entire life he had kept hidden? One evening, I decided to confront him in a different way. Instead of accusations, I tried to speak from the place of vulnerability. Daniel, I need to understand everything. Not just the account, not just the houses, but all of it. I need to know the truth, even if it hurts. He looked at me, the weight of years of secrecy reflected in his eyes. I've tried to protect you from fear, he admitted. From the possibility that I might not be able to care for you in the future. But I see now that my silence has caused more harm than good. Tears welled in my eyes. I don't want fear, Daniel. I don't want secrets. I want us fully, together through everything. Over the next few days, Daniel began to open up completely. He explained the rationale behind every transfer, every legal consultation, every purchase. Each revelation was a mixture of love, fear, and meticulous planning. The account had grown not out of selfishness but out of anxiety, his desperate desire to ensure my security if his health declined. Yet each revelation brought new tension. I felt relief, but also anger at the isolation his secrecy had created. It was a complicated mix of gratitude and betrayal that left me exhausted emotionally. Then came the second twist. While sorting through his files one night, I found a set of letters addressed to me, written during the early months of his diagnosis. In them, Daniel had documented his fears, plans, and thoughts about the future. One letter read, I am terrified of leaving her alone, unprotected, unprepared. I hope she will understand that everything I have done in secret is because I love her. But I fear my choices may hurt her instead. The words broke me. I realized that every secret, every hidden plan, every quiet decision had been born out of love and fear, not malice or deception. Yet even love wrapped in secrecy could create deep wounds. Over the following month, we began to merge our understanding. We combined accounts, discussed plans, and confronted the fear together. Yet the second property remained a symbol of tension. Its purchase, though intended for security, represented the cost of secrecy. I struggled to reconcile gratitude for his foresight with resentment for the distance it created. Then came the climax of part 2. Daniel confessed a final layer of truth. The lawyer consultations weren't only about managing assets. They had been about establishing a trust, anticipating worst-case scenarios, and securing legal guardianship in case his condition worsened. He had done all this in isolation, believing it was his duty to bear the burden alone. I felt a tidal wave of emotions: shock, relief, sorrow, and understanding. The sheer magnitude of what he had carried alone was staggering. But so was the cost. Our emotional intimacy had been eroded by years of silence and fear, despite his intentions. The following days were a mixture of confrontation, reconciliation, and deep reflection. We sought therapy to navigate the delicate emotional landscape. Every conversation tested our limits, but also built new layers of trust. Each revelation, while painful, strengthened the understanding that love and fear are intertwined, and transparency is the bridge between them. I began to see the account, the properties, and the letters not as betrayals, but as expressions of care, flawed, imperfect, human. The anger remained, but it was tempered by empathy and comprehension. By the end of part 2, we were entering a new phase. The account was no longer a secret. The properties were integrated into our shared plan. The lawyer's consultations were understood in context. We were beginning to rebuild trust on a foundation that included fear, foresight, and honesty. Yet the emotional tension lingered. I realized that reconciliation isn't instantaneous. Trust is painstakingly reconstructed, And even love born of fear must be continuously nurtured to heal the wounds it unintentionally creates. The days following the revelations of the secret account and the hidden property were tense, fragile, yet charged with a strange sense of hope. Daniel and I were learning to communicate again. Truly communicate. And each conversation was a test of patience, love, and trust. I could feel our connection growing tentatively, like shoots pushing through dry soil after a harsh winter. But even as we rebuilt, unease lingered. The lawyer's notes, the trust documents, the emergency funds, all of it was tangible proof of his fear, his planning, and ultimately, his isolation in carrying the weight of our future alone. The house, the account, the letters, they were protective, yes, but they were also walls separating us emotionally. Then the final revelation arrived unexpectedly, like a thunderclap in the calm. I was sorting through the folder of letters and statements again when I found an envelope I hadn't noticed before. No date, no markings, just my name in Daniel's familiar handwriting. My hands trembled as I opened it. Inside was a detailed plan, not just for finances but for life without him. It was chilling. He had considered every scenario: illness progression, financial collapse, how I would continue alone. There were contingency plans for medical care, instructions for liquidating assets, even letters to friends and family explaining circumstances I had never known he had anticipated. I felt my stomach drop. He's been planning for my life without him, I whispered to myself. Daniel walked into the room quietly. I wanted to be ready for anything, he said softly. His voice carried a mixture of shame, fear, and deep love. I didn't want you to suffer, but I see now that in trying to protect you, I've terrified you instead. I looked at him, seeing the layers of anxiety, devotion, and love etched in his face. This is overwhelming, I admitted. And yet, I understand why you did it. Over the next few weeks, we sat together, going through each document, each plan. We laughed sometimes at his obsessive attention to detail, cried at the weight of his fears, and argued over the parts that seemed excessive, unnecessary, or even stifling. Each session peeled back another layer of secrecy and fear, revealing the man I had married, and the man who had been silently battling his anxieties alone for years. One evening, as we finished reviewing the trust documents, I asked the question that had haunted me since the beginning. Daniel, why didn't you trust me with this from the start? He looked at me, eyes filled with vulnerability. I did trust you, but I feared your fear. I thought if I shielded you, protected you in silence, I could spare you pain. And instead, you were terrified anyway, he said softly. But now, maybe we can face it together. Then came the third and final twist, the one that would forever redefine how I viewed our marriage, trust, and love. A few days later, while Daniel was out picking up prescriptions, I decided to check one last email, just to reassure myself that nothing had been hidden in plain sight. I opened a message from the law firm and froze. The subject line read, "Confidential. Additional trust documentation." Inside was a letter from the lawyer explaining that Daniel had also been quietly working to secure not just our immediate finances but a long-term inheritance plan. He had created an account in my name, an irrevocable trust, that would protect me in the event of his incapacity or death. The sum was staggering. Over $350,000 meticulously organized, invested, and secured for my future. I sat there shaking. Every secret, every hidden plan, every act of meticulous foresight suddenly took on a new meaning. He hadn't just been preparing for himself, he had been preparing for me. A lifetime, a legacy, a safety net I hadn't even imagined. When Daniel returned home, I confronted him gently, my voice shaking with a mixture of awe and disbelief. Daniel, this is incredible. Why didn't you tell me? He sighed, tears brimming in his eyes. Because I wanted to protect you from fear, from worry, from the burden of knowing too much too soon. But I see now that in trying to protect you, I've hurt you. I took his hands in mine. You've terrified me, yes. But now, I understand. And I love you even more for it. From that day on, life shifted. The secrets that had caused such tension became the foundation for our renewed commitment. We merged accounts, discussed finances openly, and integrated every hidden property, plan, and trust into a shared vision for the future. Every discussion about money became a conversation about love, trust, and the courage to face the unknown together. We continued therapy, not out of crisis, but out of a desire to strengthen communication, rebuild intimacy, and face the shadow of fear that had haunted us for so long. Each session revealed the delicate balance between protective secrecy and shared trust, and the immense value of transparency, even when difficult. Months later, I found myself sitting with Daniel in the garden of our new home, sunlight filtering through the trees. The secret account, the hidden houses, the letters, and the trusts, all of it now shared, integrated, and understood, felt less like burdens and more like evidence of devotion. We talked about the future, our hopes, our fears, and even our past mistakes. Every revelation that had once felt like betrayal was now a testament to his love, fear, and humanity. And I realized that love is rarely simple, rarely clean. It is messy, complicated, and sometimes terrifying. But it is worth it when faced together. One night, as we sat in the living room, I opened the folder of letters one final time. Among them was a small envelope I had never noticed. Inside was a letter dated the day of his first doctor's appointment years ago. I am scared. I am terrified. But I love her more than anything. I will carry this alone if I must, to ensure she is safe. I hope someday she will understand why I did what I did. I folded the paper carefully, feeling the weight of the past years. And in that moment I understood the full scope of what had happened. Love, fear, secrecy, planning, devotion, all intertwined in a way that had nearly destroyed us, yet ultimately saved us. We learned to navigate life differently after that. Every conversation about money, health, or plans for the future became an exercise in openness and vulnerability. The account was no longer a secret. The houses were part of our shared life. The letters and trusts were symbols of devotion and foresight. And yet, I never forgot the moment I discovered the hidden account. The fear, the shock, the anger. They lingered as reminders that love is complicated. That even the best intentions can wound. That transparency, courage, and communication are the only tools capable of healing the fractures created by fear. Looking back now, I realize that the secret account, once a symbol of betrayal, became the key to understanding Daniel, to understanding love itself. Every hidden dollar, every plan, every fear-laden decision was an act of devotion. And though it terrified me, it also taught me the most valuable lesson of all. That love is strongest when we confront fear together, when we embrace honesty, and when we are willing to face even the most uncomfortable truths side by side. I discovered the secret savings account, and in doing so, I discovered not just Daniel's devotion, but the depths of our own resilience. We emerged stronger, more connected, and more aware of the delicate dance between fear and love. From that day on, our marriage was rebuilt not just on trust, but on shared knowledge of our vulnerabilities, fears, and hopes. We faced the unknown together, prepared for whatever life might throw our way. And in the quiet moments, evenings on the porch, shared cups of coffee, letters exchanged quietly in the night, I knew that the love we had survived was deeper, richer, and more enduring than I could have ever imagined.